Here's the number one reason why you get denied for business funding. We don't have time to waste today. Let's go straight into it. Here's two main things that you need to know first. Number one, there is a reason why you're being denied. There's always a reason for it, always, no matter what it is, no matter what bank you go to. There is a reason why if you've applied for business funding, you didn't get approved right then and there. There's a reason for it. It's just a matter of knowing why that specific bank denied you. Now, each bank is different, so it's important to know what each bank is looking for. American Express is different from Chase, which is different from Bank of America, so on and so forth. Now, number two, banks do not often tell you the real reason why you are denied, even though according to the ECOA, which is the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, they must legally disclose the reason for any denial within 30 days. But banks often do not give you the precise reason, especially for commercial credit or business funding. They really don't have to tell you the precise reason with business funding. Okay, on the commercial side, on the personal side, it's a little bit different. Now, sometimes, you just really have to have a good BS detector for this. And this is coming from one of my other videos, but this one is going to be a lot more in detail. Okay, so let's go straight into it. The number one reason why you are denied for business funding, here it is. Few minutes into the video, I'm going to tell you the number one reason. Relationships. That is it. Okay, number one reason. Because guess what? Regardless of what you hear on the internet, regardless of what your favorite person that's talking about, getting this obscene amount of funding from the banks, literally most banks are not willing to lend to either newer businesses or even established businesses, because you can be established for 20 years. But even with that, most banks are not willing to lend to an established business unless they have a particular business relationship. Okay, unless that particular applicant has a business relationship with that particular bank. Okay, regardless of what you hear, that's the truth. Now let's define what this means precisely. Like, what is a new business? What does it mean to have a relationship with a bank? What I define as a new business, let's talk about that first. Is an LLC that's been established for less than 2 years, or a business, you've been in business for 2+ years. Here, what I say in this out, being in business for 2+ years does not count. Your LLC has to be established. Okay. Or you have annual revenue less than $100,000. That's what I would consider to be a new business. So most banks are not willing to lend to you if you fall in this criteria. Because why would a bank trust a brand new business? You haven't even shown the ability to pay back any funding. So who's going to give you $250,000, $500,000, to a business owner that has not proven that he or she could even pay that back? You know what I mean? Like, just think about it for a second. Especially if you're looking to get access to high limits, 100, 250K plus in your business. Most banks are not willing to lend to a new business. All right, there are some exceptions we will talk about towards the end of the video, but just keep rolling. Now, what is a strong business banking relationship? So it's when you have a business personal checking account with a particular institution, a merchant account, and other products that have been established for 1 to 3+ months. Now, a lot of you guys have been with like a Wells Fargo for like 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, or you've been with at least one particular bank for like a year, but at least like 1 to 3+ months is what I would consider a stronger banking relationship. Okay. And not just having an account open to as well, but having other products like a merchant account, deposits from other businesses. You don't have any NSFs or non-sufficient funds. You have a low 5 or higher bank rating, meaning that you have at least 10K in that business checking account, right? That is what's going to help establish a strong banking relationship with whatever bank you're trying to go to for funding. Like I said, other products, savings accounts, CD accounts, mortgages, auto loans, retirement accounts, so on and so forth, right? So that's one thing you have to consider. Like, if you're applying and you're getting denied for business funding, are you a newer business, right? And even if you're not a newer business, which banks are you going to? Right? Like, how many strong relationships do you have within the banks? right? So who do you have personal credit cards with? That's something that you have to consider. Do you have a personal credit card with that bank? Like, who do you bank with? Who do you have the most tenure with? Who do you have the most positive payment history with? It's vital to know these things before you apply. And if you apply and you get denied and you don't have these things, it's probably the reason why. I'm telling you, it's the number one reason that I've seen. I've seen thousands of applications, hundreds of different clients, and I'm telling you, this is the number one reason why you will be denied. Straight up, you're applying too fast. Without having that relationship being built. And you have to consider all these things I just mentioned. Who you bank with, personal cards, tenure, all this good stuff. This needs to be considered before applying. Now, again, I told you there's a solution though. It's not all doom and gloom, because you may be a newer business and you may not have that many relationships established. What if you don't have that, right? There's two options here. Either just build relationships or use business relationship managers. Oftentimes you want to do both, really. But let's talk about the first one, building relationships with the right bank or banks. So you want to open a business checking account with the institution that you're looking to get funding from, like a Chase Bank, a Bank of America, a Truist Bank, a Citizens Bank. Do I need to keep going? Right? You want to open the account and deposit money into that account. And again, other things too as well, but on minimum that. But what I want you to understand is that this is something you have to get. Okay. There's a ton of nuance when it comes to building a relationship with the bank. All right. A ton of nuance. All banks are not equal. All right. There's a vast number of data points to consider. And let me say this real quick when it comes to nuance. What I've noticed is that when people don't understand a topic, they want it to be simple in their heads. They think that it's simple because they don't understand it. They don't understand the nuance. So they think it's simple and they kind of just protrude that energy out on other people. For example, like a lot of people, you can criticize like professional athletes, I don't know, NBA, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Michael Jordan, or in football, whoever it is, professional, college, or whatever level. It's easy for us to sit on the couch and criticize athletes for, oh, he run the ball too much or he shoot too many threes, whatever the case. But until you out there on the field, it's a completely different story, right? Anybody that's ever tried to play a sport that they watch, they know it's a completely different story when you actually doing it versus actually talking about it. But it seems that people that have never played sports and stuff like that are overly critical, a lot of times they don't really understand the nuance in it. So it's just a lot easier to say all you have to do is just improve the jump shot. All you have to do is just do this. Well, it's not that easy. So why am I saying all that? Why am I rambling here? Because when it comes to business funding, a lot of people think it's just as easy as applying. Like, I can get 250K. All I need to do is apply. Like, you got negative items. You ain't even got the personal credit score. You just started your LLC. You ain't made no money in your business, but you got the expectation that you about to get 500K just because you saw somebody else post about it, somebody else talk about it. That's not the case. When you see me like post approvals, because I could be, part of the fuel to that flame, right? Because I post all these high limit approvals. Like some of my clients have got, crazy amount of funding, but you have to understand that it was a lot of work that went into it. Okay. There was a lot of position that we had to do, or the client had a great, amazing relationship with that particular bank. They're already making money in their business, their established business. They have a lot of resources to play with. There's so many different variables that you do not see. So you can't go online, go on Instagram, go on YouTube, or wherever you've seen it at Facebook, and then see somebody get approved for a certain limit, a certain amount, and think that you can replicate that result. It's a lot of nuance that goes into this. I'm trying to tell you so that way you won't continue to apply and get denied, because that may be one of the reasons that you're here. You're either here for informational purposes or you've been applying, you've been getting denied. I'm telling you it's because why I can't say it's because of a relationship, but this is the number one reason why I'm telling you 100%. But just understand and respect, there's a lot of data points. There's a lot of nuance that you have to consider in general in business funding, but also with building a relationship, because I don't want you to think that, I just open a business checking account. Like, all banks are different. Okay, each and every bank has its own different type of rules, everything else that you have to consider data points. I'm telling you that now. Now, what should you consider before applying before applying for business funding? To be specific, here are a few things. One, is the bank new relationship friendly? Some banks tend to lend to newer businesses and newer relationships, but some banks are the complete opposite. For example, Synovus Bank, which a lot of you guys probably have not heard of Synovus because they're only in, I want to say, 4 or 5 states: Alabama, South Carolina. Uh, I can't remember. It's only like four or 5 states that this bank is in. But since it's here in my state, in Alabama, I know about it. But they only lend to businesses that have been open for 2 years. And you also have to have a great relationship with them. But some banks, again, the complete opposite. Where Chase Bank, a lot of you guys get approved for 5, 10, 15K, and you don't have a long-standing relationship with them. You don't have a personal card. You don't have a business checking account, all that stuff. So you still can get approved. With Synovus, you can't even get 10K off of them unless you've been open for 2 years, right? So every bank is different. I'm just using them as, compare and contrast, but every bank is different. Okay, you have to consider these things. Another thing, do you need a business checking account? How much money do you need to deposit in it? How long does the money need to be in the account? Does a bank consider business credit utilization? Because some banks will weigh heavier on that, right? Like if you already have business credit cards, if they're maxed out, that bank can pull and see that report and see that, and you could be denied depending on the bank if they, consider that to be a data point that they care about before letting you be approved for funding, right? Do you have to have business credit established first? Some banks are a little bit more serious about you having an online presence, about having business credit established first before approval, right? What is the typical approval amount and the limits? Just because you saw somebody else get a 50K, is that typical? Sometimes y'all see like a 50K, 100K approval, 75K approval, 25K approval, even 25. Let's not even go all the way up. Let's say like 25K. You see a 25K approval, you don't know that that person has been with that particular bank for 10 years and they funneled out hundreds of thousands of dollars in that bank within the last year. So yeah, it's going to be a lot easier to get approved for that bank. But you see the approval and you're like, oh shoot, this must be easy. And it's not. It's not. Like for people that's acting like getting business funding is easy, it's a lie. Getting business funding is not easy, right? For most people. It depends, but it's just not easy. And if you're just making everybody believe that it's just so easy, anybody could do it, it's just a lie. And don't listen to my words. Just look at the approvals. Like if it was so easy, then everybody would do it. Everybody would just have 250K in business funding to start, grow, scale their companies, but obviously they don't. Anyways, does this bank report utilization to the personal side? Well, this is a big one right here. Some banks will report to your personal credit reports, not just the inquiry. I'm talking about the account and the utilization, like Capital One. There's other banks too, so you have to be careful with that. What is the maximum exposure amount? Contrary to popular belief, every bank won't just fund you endlessly, with an unlimited amount of money for any LLC you start. You open 10 LLCs and get 75K from each, 750K. All right, that's not a thing. That's what some people talk about. I've seen it, but it's not a thing. Some banks have a maximum amount that they'll give to each guarantor, regardless of the amount of businesses that you open. Now, does this bank ask for documentation for approval? There's only really a select number of banks that don't ask for documents, guys. A lot of these credit unions, like a lot of people are pushing, credit union this, credit union that. I'm not saying credit unions are bad or anything, and it depends on the credit union, but a lot of the credit unions, they ask for documentation, guys, and they don't just give out higher limits without any type of docs, or really they don't give out higher limits anyways. A lot of the credit unions don't. So excuse me, you gotta consider that, right? Is it even worth applying for? Like some banks, I don't even consider worth applying for, depending on the requirements, how long it takes to build a relationship, how much the limit is, because If you ask for 3 years of tax returns, you have to have a business is open for this amount of time. You have to have this much this much money deposited in the account, and then the highest you give out is like 15K. I don't consider that a bank that I'm going to ever apply for funding for. If you were already with that bank before you knew all of this information, it is what it is. But I'm saying I'm not going to even start to go that way if I know that's the case. But that's something that you also have to consider. What are the personal credit requirements? Like that's something to consider too as well. Some banks are more sensitive to increase than others. Some banks are more sensitive to utilization. By the way, I just throw this on here real quick so you can see on the screen. If you have these things here, it's going to put you in the top tier of the personal credit requirements when it comes to what most banks are looking for. But still, if you don't have, if your profile doesn't look like this right now, you may want to consider which banks you go to, because again, some banks are more, they're more sensitive in particular data points on your personal credit than other banks are. Point is, as you see, there's a lot to consider for each and every bank. All right. Each and every bank is different. Trust me, there's a lot more that goes into this as well. This is something that, I'm just kind of typing out as I'm going here, but this is definitely not the full amount of data points that you have to consider before you apply for funding. And you know what? The most important thing here too is not understanding this information or consider it will always lead to lower limits and denial. So you have to consider that. Now, we talked about business relationship managers earlier. What is a business relationship manager? Essentially, it's a manager or a banker that's at a higher level than the ones that you see inside of a branch. Okay. It's a connection that you want to have to get higher limits and the highest chances of approval. Okay. The problem is that normally business relationship managers are only available to clients that have businesses with at least $1 million more in revenue. Some banks are different, but this is the general rule. And that's why I give access to my business relationship managers, and I have them for multiple banks. I want to say we have at least 7 or 8 different banks that we have business relationship managers with. That's why I give my clients access to them, because I know without them, we wouldn't get nowhere near as high of limits without them. All right. And the cool thing is too, that they know the underwriters. The underwriters, a lot of people don't talk about underwriters, but underwriters are very, very important, because these are the guys that kind of hold your fate. These are the guys that say, you know what? They look at your stuff. All right, that's a 50K approval. Or they say, I'm only giving them 5K. They kind of hold the keys. And let me tell you this secret. I'm giving y'all my secrets. Let me tell you this secret. The underwriter is also important, let me go back a little bit. I said they're important, but the reason why they're kind of thoroughly analyzing everything is because they're attached to whatever approval amount they get. So they give you 50K and you max it out and you don't pay it back, they get dinged for that. You see, as the underwriter. So they have to be very careful. And that's why they're not just willy-nilly giving out money. The underwriter don't want to just give out, 250K to just any blow schmo. Right. And then you blow it all, or not blow it all, because you can max it out. That's part of what business funding is for, if that happened to be the case. But I'm saying you don't pay it back, that's going to be a ding on them. That could be bad for them. Even they can be terminated for stuff like that, for too many of those type of clients. So they have to be very thorough and analyze these things. Right. And with business relationship managers, we actually get access to the underwriters too, or they have access to the underwriters, and they have a good relationship with them. That's why we're able to kind of get some approvals where you wouldn't get them, without the business relationship manager, because without them, you're at the mercy of the algorithm, really. And this also is going to help with the lack of age in business and the lack of business relationships. Okay. Now, that's all really for this topic. The number one reason you're going to be denied for business funding is the lack of relationships. Now, if you want one-on-one help, if you want to get up to 250K in 0% business funding, if you want to leverage our business relationship managers, then fill out the quick survey. It's going to be in the description below. Let's hop on a call. Most of that call is going to be us going over exactly where you are, creating a customized funding strategy live on the call and seeing how much funding that we can get. If we can, if we can't, we talk about that straight up. Like, no, we can't work together. It's all good. Um, Also, I'm going to put a resource in the description if you need to liquidate any of your business credit cards for you guys that already have funding and you need to liquidate it into cash into your business checking account. Then I have a resource for that below. Other than that, let's keep it going, baby. Let's keep it going. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Let's keep it going. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe for weekly funding videos. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.